Okay guys, let's do 7.6. It should not take long at all. This is probably the easiest section of this chapter. So we're dealing with proportions. So if I have a triangle with two parallel lines, I know that this segment is proportional to this one and this one is proportional to that one. Or, so you can say 10 is to 8 as x is to 6, or 8 is to 10 as 6 is to x, or 8 is to 6 as 10 is to x, or 10 is to x as 8 is to 6. We've done this a bunch of times. So let's set up the proportion. 8 to 10 is equal, 8 to 10 is equal to 6 to x. You could have also done it as 8 to 6 is equal to 10 to x. Now, what's the only difference? That this 10 and this 6 were switched. And what are this 10 and 6 and 6 to 10? The means. So let's cross multiply. What's 8 times x? 8x. What's 6 times 10? 60. Divided by 8, divided by 8. 60 divided by 8 can be simplified. Let's divide by 4. Divide by 4. 60 divided by 4 is 15. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. So the answer should be 15 over 2 or 7.5. Yep. Or 7.5. Either one. Here they wanted you to put it as an integer or decimal, so you would have had to put it as a 7.5. You could not have put 15 over 2. So let's look at this next one. Same thing. X is to 30 as 4.4 is to 22. So x is to 30 as 4.4 is to 22. Or you could have done x is to 4.4 as 30 is to 22. Once again, the only thing that's changed is the means. 30 to 4.4, 30 and 4.4. So let's solve this one. 22 times x is 22x. 30 times 4.4, let's do that on the calculator. Okay. 30 times 4.4, 132. What's 132 divided by 22? That's 6. Divided by 22, x equals 6. And that's my answer right there. Okay, so next. Now, same thing here, right? If I have 3 parallel lines intersecting 2 line segments, same thing. 4 is to 8 as x is to 10, or 4 is to x as 8 is to 10. Either way you guys want is fine. So I want to do, oh, I apologize. This is not 10. This is 10 minus x, right? 10 minus x. So 4 to x is to 8 to 10 minus x. So let's write that. So 4 to 8, 4 to 8 is equal to x to 10 minus x. Just this segment. Because if the whole thing is 10 and you're missing this piece, well, if the whole thing is 10 and this segment is just missing the x, then isn't this just 10 minus the x? We're missing this piece. So what's 8 times x? That's 8x equals 4 times 10 minus x. Distribute. 8x equals 40 minus 4x. Add 4x. Add 4x. This is going to be 12x equals 40. Divide by 12. Divide by 12. I know that's not going to go evenly, so I'm going to simplify. 40 divided by 12. I'm going to divide by, let's say, 4. I don't know why I'm putting 2. Divide by 4. So 40 divided by 4 is 10. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So my answer should be 10 over 3. And look at that, it is. Okay? So let's go here. Now, we are given this proportion is equal to this proportion. Or, sorry, this fraction slash ratio is equal to this fraction slash ratio. And we know that the whole thing is called a proportion. So let's take a look at JR. Where's JR? Let's highlight in blue. Let's do all of this in blue. So JR is to KJ as something is to KS. Well, I think we know what's going to be proportional to that. It's going to be this one, right? SR or RS right here. Okay? And this is the triangle angle bisector theorem, which is the one that we're going to learn about in about, which is saying this. Remember that we learned, oh, we already learned this. Remember when we learned that if an angle is bisected, that any point on that angle bisector is equidistant to the sides of that angle. Okay? So there's that one. Now let's look at this one. So we already learned that if I have a triangle, if I have a triangle with 2 parallel lines, with 2 lines that are parallel, this is proportional to this as this is proportional to that. Now we also learned that if I have 3 parallel lines, parallel, 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 and 2 lines here, 2 lines here, this is proportional to this as this is proportional to that. Those are the first 2 that we learned. Now we have this one. In an angle bisector, this to this is the same as this to that. Or this to this is equal to 7x to 6x. It's just setting up proportions. Once again, it's what we've been doing this entire time, right? So let's solve for x, and in order to solve for x, we need to write a proportion of all these side lengths. So I'm gonna do 10x minus 4 to 7, so 10x minus 4 to 7x. Remember that this means 2 is equal to, so 10x minus 4 to this is going to be 9x to 6x. So let's set that up. So now let's cross multiply. 9x times 7x is going to be 63x squared. Going to be equal to 6x times 10x minus 4. 63x squared is equal to 60x squared minus 6, 12, 18, 24, 24x. Now let's get all of our x squared on one side. Okay, so that's going to be what? It's going to be 3x squared equals minus 24x. Okay, so one big problem that I see here is that I'm not going to be able to set any of these x's equal to a constant. So that means this kind of honestly looks like the quadratic formula, except what's my constant? My constant is going to be 0. So if my constant is 0, I'm still going to set this equal to 0 because this is still the quadratic formula. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, except that my c is 0. So I'm going to put this on one side, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So 3x squared plus 24x equals 0. Now, I need to, once again, I need to set up some sort of parentheses, some sort of set of terms that are going to be equal to this 0. Right? So that's the part that we have to do now. So in order to do that, we have to factor. You guys should have learned this in Algebra 1. So what's the greatest common factor between, let's first do, what's the greatest common factor between 3 and 24. Well, it's 3, so I'm going to factor out a 3. So I'm factoring out a 3. Okay, what's the greatest common factor between x squared and x? It's just x. Okay, x squared and x. It's just x. So I'm going to take out an x. And now, I've already factored out everything I could, so now I need to write the rest of it inside the parentheses. So if I take out a 3x from here, what do I have left? If I take out the 3, because I pulled it out, and I take out the one of the x's, so now I don't have x squared, I just have x1. What's left inside of this? Just an x. Okay. If I take out 3 from the 24, how much is left? What's 24 divided by 3? That's 8. Plus 8. Now, I took out one x, so this x now is outside. So what's in here? Nothing. It's just 8. And that's it. Now that's equal to 0. Now, I need to set this 3x equal to 0. And this 8 plus x equals to 0. So x divided by 3 divided by 3. 0 divided by 3 is 0 divided by 3 is 0. And minus 8, x is equal to negative 8. So these are my two answers, but once again, 0 cannot be an answer because if 0 was an answer, let's put the 0 over here. Let's do 9x. What's 9 times 0? 0. Can a side length ever be 0? No. So that's not going to be correct. So my only answer is negative 8. Okay? Okay, so determine whether the red segments are parallel. Well, we learned this already, right? Whoops. What's going on? Okay, so if I have a triangle, and I'm making the claim that this line and this line are parallel, that this line and this line are parallel, well, what do I know about the side lengths? They have to be what? If I were to make this claim, determine whether the red segments are parallel. If this is going to be if these two are going to be parallel, then these sides have to be proportional to each other. So let's see if they are. Let's set up the first proportion. 21 is to 15. So 21 is to 15 as 48 is to 18. 48 is to 18. Now, we can simplify and see like if the fractions are equal to each other, but that's gonna be a while. We can just use our calculators. If we multiply this and multiply these, if we multiply our extremes and we multiply our means, they should be equal to each other. So let's do 21 times 18 is 378. So 21 times 18 is 378. So unless this equals also 378, our lines are not going to be parallel. So what's 15 times 48? 720. 720. So since it's not equal, these lines are not parallel. So this is wrong, this is wrong. Now let's look at the reasons. The segments are not parallel because the conditions of the converse. Okay, because the condition of the converse of the side splitter theorem, that's what this was called, the side splitter theorem, are not satisfied. This just says are satisfied, and we know that's not true. Okay? And now last one. This is a really good question. So an angle bisector of a triangle divides the opposite side of the triangle into segments 9 and 7. So I'm going to draw a triangle. Wow, I could do better than that. Okay. Triangle are 9 and 7. Okay. Okay. A second side. Wait, what? Oh. Sorry. Okay. I was being lazy with my reading. So, an angle bisector of a triangle divides the opposite sides of the triangle into 7 and 9 centimeters. A second side of the triangle is 22.5. Find all possible lengths for the third side. Well, if I want to find out what this side is here, then I'm going to have to write a proportion. Do I know this side length? No, I don't. So I'm going to put x. So let's set a proportion. I'm going to say x is to 7 as 22.5 is to 9. Is to 9. So let's cross multiply. 9x equals what is 7 times 22.5? 7 times 22.5 is 157.5. That divided by 9 is going to be x equals 17.5. So that is one of my answers. That is my answer when this 22.5 is proportional to the 9. When this 22.5 is to the 9. But did it specify which side length? Did it say that the side length had to be a second side of the triangle is 22.5? It didn't say that it had to be touching the side length of 9. So we also could have another possible length when this side is 22.5 and this side is your x. So let's solve for that. So now I'll do it in green. 22.5, I'll write it in green. This x in green. So 22.5 to 7, I'm doing this to this, is equal to x to 9. X to 9, so 7x. What is 9 times 22.5? 9 times 22.5. 202. Okay, so my pen just died. Okay, so I'm just gonna, you guys can do the math here. Luckily it was the last question. So 22.5 times 9 is 202.5. 202.5, so we're gonna divide by 7, right? And then divide by 7, and my answer is 28.93. So that should be my answer, 28.9. So we had 17.5 right here, and if you guys do the math here, 22.5 times 9 is 202.5, and now if I write 202.5 here next to the 7x equals, I'm going to divide by 7, so I'm going to have 28.9, and that is my answer right here, 17.5 and 28.9. So that's pretty much it, guys. Good luck on your exam. I know you guys can do it. So it's going to be a hard exam, but